And we are live. Welcome to Mainstream Movies Review number 2. Today we cover 3 Deadpool movies. The first two with Darth Mandalore, and hopefully as we go on, uh, more people will come for Deadpool and Wolverine. So I guess now we can play the intro. How are you, Darth Mandalore?
Tired the Norm and you?
I'm doing great. I've seen Deadpool and Wolverine yesterday. I was kind of surprised. I liked the movie a lot. Anyway, let's get right into the first Deadpool. What did you think of the first Deadpool?
I actually loved out of the two I've seen, which was one and two. One was my favorite. It's what got me really into Marvel was Deadpool himself because I fell in love with just his character, and I saw that for. I remember when the first screen test came out years before. Um, and yeah, it was amazing. It was one of the most. It was one of the funniest movies I've seen. Um, Even though I'm still not into as Marvel these days, I still enjoy that movie because it's just. I've enjoyed Ryan Reynolds and I enjoyed Deadpool.
That's great, and I think the idea is it wasn't Disney back then, so maybe that's why you liked it. It was Fox actually that was in charge of
Well,
that.
I think it's because it was just something because all the Marvel movies were serious, like Iron Man, and they all had all Marvel movies, which they get bashed for, and compared to DC, is they have humor moments put in. Like there's a lot of humors here and there, but it's not like they're not comedies. But Deadpool was the first Marvel comedy action,
Yeah,
um, and I don't mind the Disney stuff. It's just it's for me. It's gone downhill, and I plan on eventually, at the latest, watching it when it goes on to Disney Plus. But no, I really enjoyed it, and I just think it was a really good movie, and it was just there's parts of number two which brought it down, not even because it was Disney, but it was just eh.
it was Fox as well. Disney
My
only
biggest
acquired them after Deadpool 2. That's why, like, between the first one and the second one, there was a 2 years gap. But between
yeah,
Deadpool 2 and Deadpool and Wolverine, there's a 6 years gap. So
my
Disney acquired them like after Deadpool 2 came out.
yeah, but there was talks of it happening, and my biggest issue with the movie was the Marvel references without being Marvel references. Like,
Yeah.
not to get jumped too far ahead, but the whole final fight scene that was clearly one of the helicarriers from Captain America 2.
Yeah. Yeah, you're right.
You could tell, and they even come out saying, "Yeah, that was pretty much it." But because they couldn't do Marvel, that they took everything off, and they had the biggest other issue was the lack of characters, and the couple that they brought in, I didn't. They weren't bad, but like Wolverine should have been one of the first characters brought in, and I think if they're going to do anything, they should have brought there's some more lesser known characters, especially Canadian, just to go with like everyone says Danny DeVito should be the next Wolverine. And I think no. They should and I don't know if this happened in the third movie, but I think Danny DeVito would be a perfect cameo to play Puck.
Well, without going into spoiler, I think we we will have a new Wolverine for sure.
Well,
But
yeah,
the
I
question
looked up.
is when, because I don't think as of right now they can legally have a new Wolverine. That's mainly the thing, I think.
Well, I saw I know I looked up all the cameos because sometimes I'm not worried about spoilers, so I learned who's certain. who she was. I'm glad it was one of the three options, that it wasn't two of them that was being rumored. Um, but yeah, I know Hugh Jackman also is getting to that age where he can't be doing this much more. And
Yeah, he's like in his late 50s, I believe, early 60s.
normally, and one of the bigger things that I've had issues with Marvel is how they keep changing things from the comics. That was one thing that never bothered me, was Wolverine was a short hairy Canadian.
Yeah,
Um, I didn't mind that they made him taller. That because that was one of the biggest like hardcore Marvel fan complaints about the Wolverine was he's supposed to be short and hairy, and I actually liked it. I actually liked how they did it with Wolverine.
but they do poke fun at that.
He
I want
that's
to
the joy of
Deadpool.
Deadpool is he pokes fun at everything. Even
Yeah,
back then when it was just Deadpool 1, they poked fun at things that didn't even need to be poked fun at, but they poked fun at things when things were still at their peak. That was before the downfall of it, as a lot, because their movies have been going down, not even by just opinion, but just by money making and views.
yeah,
Um, in the second one, they made fun of stuff like they can't afford cameos. Like even though that they could do it, they hit that brief second cameo. It's like they do good. I really enjoy them,
yeah.
and that's why I love him, because he makes fun of. I haven't seen the jokes in 3 yet, but I'm guessing there's quite a few pokes at some wokeness in Marvel.
There's well, it's more like about Fox, but yeah, there's a bit of
I'm
that
guessing
as
there's some
well.
current state of Marvel jokes, but
Yeah,
not too much because Disney won't make fun of themselves that much. They're a little sensitive.
yeah. I think the main focus on it was like to say goodbye to the Fox universe because that's the last Fox movie. Um, but yeah, to get back at Deadpool 1, I only had one issue with that movie. Plot convenience, a garbage truck happening to pass under the bridge as Deadpool escaped Colossus. Same truck was the reason for Wade's escape, and if any other vehicle took the truck place, the escape idea would have collapsed.
But I think that is Deadpool, is the plot convenience is part of it. It's just because Deadpool is so over the top that they do sort of those conveniences. And
If I bash a movie for that, I bash them all.
well, yeah, well,
The-
every movie has it, but Deadpool does the stereotypes of movies that never would happen, and he just does it.
Yeah. The only way a plot convenience would work for me is if it's all part of a big plan and there are already seeds of it. Like on a second watch, when you get to see stuff, you're like, oh, okay. They were already telling you it was all part of a plan, but you didn't know because you didn't see the full picture. But here it's really like, oh yeah, the truck is passing by, so you can escape through that truck. I wasn't a fan of that. Only one thing I didn't like. Outside of that, the first Deadpool, I had a blast. I thought the first time, actually, I've seen it in theater when it came out. I've seen it actually twice in theater, I believe, and I enjoyed it a lot. But this most recent watch, I liked it even more, and I don't know why.
I think it's because it's before the, and I'm not trying to attack Disney, but it was before, not even Marvel, but current movies, sort of how they are, and it's before all that, before politics, should say, before it was just a goofy slapstick fun movie,
Yeah,
and it was Deadpool. One of my favorite reasons for loving it as well, which is more of an after thing, is because that was my first introduction to Gina Carano.
yeah,
Um, and I thought she did that character well, and I've enjoyed her in Mandalorian and in other properties. But yeah, it was a good movie, and just I loved Deadpool at the time. I played the game multiple times before then. I've been collecting pops. Like Deadpool is what got me into Marvel. Um,
Yeah.
and yeah, it's just an enjoyable movie. There's not much to really like. The only thing like to really bash is the lack of characters because Deadpool's known for his connections to like all the characters, especially female characters, but especially his two sort of buddy guys. Is the best interactions he has in this comics is with Wolverine and with Spider Man because he does a lot
Yeah.
of sort of because it's like how to draw Deadpool, draw Spider Man, give him cancer
Yeah.
because they look similar. It's just like so it's a hilarious thing, and it's just yeah, it's
And
just
one deletes people, the other doesn't.
well, yeah, one does his best to not hurt to stop to hurt people.
Yeah.
Because when they did that Amazing Spider-Man I can't remember which cartoon it was because I don't remember the names of which one. But when they did that really popular one that had Drake Bell in it, I think it was, and they did the Deadpool crossover,
Yeah.
and they did the Unalive, and they could because it's a kids cartoon. Um, they've always even the anime one that was sort of like Beyblades. I can't remember what it was called. Where they were trapped in these little sort of triangle things, and it was also a game in real life. Um, they even put Deadpool had a cameo in there, and
Wow.
like Deadpool, like everyone loves Deadpool because he is the comic relief of Marvel.
Yeah. So I also got a few things to point out that I enjoyed. These are 3 points. The reveal of not having a cure was kind of cool, and that was near the end of the movie. Now, sadly, I've seen so many movies since then. I can't remember exactly what I refer to, and the worst than that, I've seen it like last month again because I wanted to be ready for this stream. So maybe that reminds you of something. Um, the reveal of not having a cure.
Well, yeah,
Um,
that it's always nice. Not like for so many movies, there's always that last minute sort of plot device where it's just, oh, it doesn't look like we'll be able to save you, blah blah blah, and like saved.
yeah,
And Deadpool was like, no. But you kind of knew that was coming because Deadpool is known to be always have cancer and that.
yeah. Wade wrote into accepting others' help to save his girlfriend was kind of cool. Wade was very superficial and not accepting of himself after his X gene was released. Um, that's really cool, these aspects. So like a lot of things were really heartfelt, like the romance, the action was cool, the humor was very good, and we had a lot of very creative scene, like the intro sequence. That was a great one. I think the movie overall is just amazing, and it's one of the best superhero movie out there. I think in my books it's the weakest Deadpool, but it's not by that much because again, I think all of these three Deadpool movies are just really, really good. So yeah, I don't have a lot more to say. I will add this. I give the first Deadpool a 9.7 out of 10. What about you, Dark Mandalore?
Um, for just rating, I'd probably give it. I don't do the points, so I'd probably just do, or if I do, I do like 9.5 out of 10. No, it was just a really good movie, and I love the fact that Ryan Reynolds was attached because years before even Ryan Reynolds was attached to the name Wade Wilson or Deadpool, even before Wolverine Origins. Um, how Deadpool was described himself is Ryan Reynolds and a Sharpei or radioactive Sharpei. I can't remember how, or bitten by radio. I can't remember exactly, but he was always described as Ryan Reynolds with some things that would take away from the looks. So the
Yeah,
fact that they actually went with and Ryan Reynolds, I knew was perfect because like if you watch his older stuff and like he's always been he can do serious and he can do some slight action, but he's always done humorous and it works and and how he is in his humor works out perfectly.
Yeah, that's true. I agree with that. Anyway, let's get into Deadpool 2, except if you'd like to add something else about the first one.
Not that I can think of, but they'll probably come up comparing it to Deadpool, talking about Deadpool 2 or something.
Yeah, so here we are, Deadpool 2. What did you think of Deadpool 2?
My biggest, I didn't like the kid. Um, I don't know. It's nothing against him. It's just I don't like necessarily kid in like more serious movies or action, like unless they are like a little kid and they're just a plot point, as in, oh, this is my child, someone kidnaps him. But it was just, and the whole, and I wasn't. That was my first sort of. I didn't like the Domino character. And it's not even that. I just like the. I grew up with the original Domino sort of design, sort of like
Yeah,
the pale white.
so you
And
didn't like the
real,
race swap?
it's just all. It's not even the race swap. It was all like they could have done the race swap. The big hair could have been taken down. Like you can do a race swap, but still keep the character looking similar. How they just sort of did the whole character was not my sort of forte, but it was still a good story. Juggernaut was cool. I wish we would have seen him in his more classic than the prison outfit. Um, but no, Deadpool 2 was still good. It felt like it was Deadpool 1. They had to just up the ante and they sort of threw things in that just there was these little things here and there that just weren't necessarily needed, but they didn't necessarily hurt the movie. Um, but yeah, Deadpool 2 was fun. I enjoyed it as well. As we mentioned before, the little cameo scene when they're joking about budget, we can't afford the licensing to borrow Star X-Men characters. Like we have the whole X Mansion, but only two characters or three characters at that point. And then you see that one scene with the X-Men from the younger years, sort of in the room and going, "Oh shit," and hiding. That was kind of cool, but it was just kind of eh. But no, the movie was enjoyable. Um, Seeing Cable. Um, I don't know if Cable shows up in the third movie because Cable is also the third guy who Deadpool does a lot of great banter with, and like if you've ever played the Deadpool video game, him and Cable are just hilarious together.
Yeah, well, he is mentioned, but he is not in the movie.
Uh, one thing just to bring up before I forget, before I leave, because I think my ride's on the way here. Um, One thing I know about the third movie is that it connects to the Loki sort of,
Yeah,
and I don't like
I haven't
that.
seen Loki, but I've heard about Loki, and I know where exactly it connects.
Well,
Um,
no, but the whole sort of theme of Loki with the agency and whatnot. Like I haven't watched Loki, but I know of the agency that he works for, and I wasn't a huge fan of that having to be used. Like I wish I rather them to go to something more. I rather have gone the Doctor Strange route because Doctor
yeah,
Strange, Benedict Cumberbatch as Doctor Strange would have been hilarious. Sort of dealing with that Ryan Reynolds Deadpool, just the sighing. It would have just been. I understand they couldn't. They just sort of did that with the whole Spider-Man and the Doctor Strange movie, but I just think they could have done a much better way
yeah,
and had. I think that would have been a better storyline in general. Just because I haven't watched. I was Loki was one of the reasons I got into Deadpool or Disney Plus, but it didn't come out before I got out of it, and it's just I've seen things which are cool about Loki, but But yeah, Deadpool 2. I'm just trying to think of there was something. I can't remember if you have a thought. Go on.
Well, I got a lot to say about the second one. So this one, that was my second time watching. I haven't seen it as much as the first one, but I'd say I liked it a bit more, and I also think it's a slightly superior movie. But again, I gave a 9.7 to the first one, so like the gap is not that big, you know. So the second Deadpool for me, I had no issue with it. I was very entertained. I liked it from start to finish. And here they kind of justify some of the plot convenience through the powers of, I believe that was Domino, the character, the one that had luck.
No, that's her.
Like she has luck, she increases luck, and this is why they made it that far. It's because of her luck. I thought that was smart, and I like that a lot. It that was Domino, right? The
Yeah, that
girl
was
with
Domino, and that is her ability is kind of luck, but it's usually more for in fighting and taking scenes and having one up in a fight. They sort of, from what I've seen, sort of exaggerated some things, and it was good, but it wasn't my favorite. And before I forget, I would probably give it a 7.5 out of 10 in case I leave before you get yours.
yeah. Well, that's interesting, and thank you a lot for sharing that. So I got to say, I was hooked. That movie just went very fast for me, and I think I have some kind of bias toward that movie because it was made by David Leitch, and he is one of my favorite director when it comes to movies. In more recent days, he did The Fall Guy, a movie I adore. One of the best movie this year. I highly recommend it if you haven't seen it. It's a movie with depth and action. Anyway, to go back on track, I think David Leitch is really smart when it comes to directing because he was a stunt director for years. He worked on so many projects. So you can tell with Deadpool 2 that the stunts are just well thought of. They are well made, and there's a lot more practical stuff than like CGI fest we get to see with other Marvel movie. So these are other stuff I really liked. And the humor was peak as well. Um, when the entire task X, or I can't remember the name of that team that Deadpool made, when they all end up dying one after another in like all of the weirdest way
So
possible, that
yeah,
was like, wow,
that
team of
was it
losers.
was funny, but it was also just kind of like meh. Like it was just kind of like forced slapstick. Like that was one of the things that just seemed a little bit more for. It was still humorous and still enjoyable, but it at the same time felt a little bit forced. Although the cameo in that was one of those blink if you miss Brad Pitt in there.
Yeah, and
Uh,
I oh, what did you want to say?
no, I was just gonna say, but it was kind of I don't even know. It's just like yeah, like that was one of the things that just kind of felt like they're trying to up the slapstick from Deadpool 1. Like you sort of see it in the beginning of Deadpool 2. Um, oh, perfect timing because I'm going to be leaving in a moment, so you won't be left alone.
Yeah,
Um, was the whole fighting at the intro scene as Deadpool. That was cool. That was gory. That was bloody. That was very Deadpool like, and it felt a little bit more natural. Although the high heel shoe part was a little bit like, okay. But again, Deadpool, it makes sense.
I mean, they leaned into the. See, I was going to ask you, Mandalore, about that. They definitely leaned into the Merc with a mouth arc, and they leaned into that hard. Because if you're familiar with the Deadpool comics, that's
Yeah,
what they. Because the film has no plot, and I understand because they wanted to lean into that element. Like
But they seem to force too much. Like, it's still a good movie. I still enjoyed it, and I still
Yes.
would watch again. But it just seems like some of the Deadpool aspects were more forced than the first. The first one felt very natural for a Deadpool film, especially for his first one. Not to have too many background characters, but as I said before, Deadpool is known for his interactions with certain characters, and
Eh.
but like some of the stuff, like the Domino stuff, like some of the sort of things that go with the comics just seemed a little bit more forced into to try and up the first one, and I felt like it came out under the first one.
Okay, that's the weird part, because my issue with the film is the plot and the pacing. But the satirical humor, and I'm not a huge Deadpool fan as far as the comics, because a lot of the comics, they draw that humor out, like with a Deadpool corpse when they brought those in.
The best thing for, and honestly, the best media for Deadpool, other than the couple movies, to get Deadpool as Deadpool would be the Deadpool video game.
Or you drag, or you.
If you read enough comics, like some of the more specialized comics, like Deadpool kills the Marvel Universe,
Yeah.
and just certain things, and like in the comics, you also get his kind heart in it a bit. Like he does have a soft heart for specific certain things.
Depends which one.
Well,
Because
yeah,
the problem with Deadpool as a character is he became satirically popular.
yes.
But the rated R version with the fourth wall breaking, kind of that's what made She-Hulk popular for years. The show tried that, they couldn't nail it, but with Deadpool, right, with rated R Deadpool, like there was a period in the comics you had both Cable and Deadpool in the various team ups. That's why it works.
Well, yeah, and his interact, like even in some of the cartoons when he's made cameos, his best interactions is with Cable, Wolverine, and Spider-Man. Like he does great interactions with others, but those are his most known for.
And then you have the Deadpool corpse, which the movie does lean
Oh,
into the Deadpool corpse.
the zombie Deadpool.
Deadpool corpse.
Oh yeah, the corpse. Yeah, with Kid Pool, Dog Pool, Lady Deadpool.
Lady Deadpool, Dogpool.
That was actually one of my favorite comics. Was the Deadpool versus Kills Deadpool? I think is what it's called. When there was a group of evil Deadpools and good ones, and you had all the Canadian, the Wolverine Deadpool that was Canadian, spoken Canadian beers.
But okay, but you know what's funny? The whole thing is they actually gave him the ability to lean into the humor in the movie. Now there is
Ryan
some
Reynolds.
the meta humor is so funny too. Like he takes shots at Disney. He goes, "Well, I'll be able to join the MCU. I'll get to do whatever." I see Multi laughing. There's a lot of probably jokes you missed. It's like, oh,
Yeah.
there will be DEI. There'll be all of this. They actually let Ryan Reynolds do
Well,
it.
yeah, because as much as they probably wanted to censor some of his stuff, they know what sells Deadpool is his making fun of himself and who, like, he made fun of Fox about not being able to afford things, and did that cameo in Deadpool 2 where you see the X-Men in the room and for a split second and then close the door.
The funny part too is Multi probably wouldn't get it. Mandela, you may get this. Okay. Do you know what? Do you know the story of the Fantastic Four, Johnny Storm? Chris Evans hated that character.
Oh, I heard that he made an appearance
With
in
a
it. Yeah.
fucking passion. He hated that character. And when he got stuck with that, they asked him to be Captain America. And he's like, well, but I was Johnny Storm before, and it wasn't really good.
Well, and his Johnny Storm was also Fox, which is where the Deadpool
And the
comes.
funny thing is, that was also the Fantastic Four, where Galactus was a giant storm cloud. Which no one really... See, the problem with the Sony... The good part about the Sony one with the Fast Bird, with the black, like, Johnny Storm, it actually worked. But... it worked for what it was.
As I said in comparison to Star Wars, when I try to watch the act like The Fantastic Flop is an okay movie if you watch it as a sci-fi movie, but once you add the Fantastic Four into it, it's garbage.
You did not like the, but then again, right now, what's funny about the whole thing is why, uh, why now a lot of people wouldn't probably get that the fact about the. I am so glad, by the way. Okay, did you actually get uh the Channing? I actually had to look up the Gambit. That was going to be the Channing Tatum
Yeah,
Gambit
that was
based on Magic Mike and
the original talk when
hmm,
they were first talking about Gambit when Marvel was at its peak and they had this huge plan of Marvel stuff
yeah,
before they started screwing up.
I
And
remember
the
that.
original plans for Gambit was Channing Tatum, and then he backed.
Mhm.
Well, I think the original one was to get the character back from Wolverine.
He was going. Okay, the funny part
But,
about
but I
that,
gotta get going
you
actually.
see that? Yes, I'll see
Um,
you later, Mandalore.
yeah, you explain this to me later. But yeah,
I'll have
so
to. It's that Gambit is actually good, but the fact that Gambit is like you almost. I'm kind of glad we actually avoided the Magic Mike one because that's what we were worried about.
I think it was. I think the main reason he would have been good is because of the accent that he does, which would
What
have
do you
fit in.
mean? Oh, if that was that accent, yes, that
But I think
totally
the
unintelligible.
one in the Wolverine one was actually not. He was
What was
actually a pretty
it?
good Gambit, especially for a younger Gambit. And how later the movies, like I haven't seen what the actor looks like now, but he probably would have worked for a Gambit movie. But I will
Well,
talk to you both later, and
Take care. Yeah, have a great one, Dart. Thank you for just
both of
dropping
you.
by.
All right,
see it.
see ya.
So to get back on track with Deadpool 2, I enjoyed that one a lot more than the first one.
Yeah.
Despite the mask, we can see Deadpool's emotions. Fourth wall break about Fox sucking was funny because right now we are still into Deadpool 2. We are not yet into Deadpool and Wolverine. Um, the action in general in that movie was just really great. I liked it. Um, and it's interesting how Deadpool really wanted to die after losing his girlfriend. And I will shit on Zack Snyder a bit, but this movie had good slow motion, so Zack Snyder should learn from it. Fight choreography and action were great, and Cable changing his mind and siding with Deadpool was kind of cool. Felt earned and deserved. Um, yeah. Um, the idea of a kid and seeing the parents was cool. Wade realizing maybe he should make a difference and gaining back his will to live was basically his character arc. And I don't have much more to say. Any thoughts about the second Deadpool, the Lord?
Um, I mean, it wasn't as bad. I mean, Deadpool, as I said, modern comes from him being more satirical because, like, him, if you just leave, see, the thing is, if you just leave Deadpool to Deadpool, a lot of stuff is, his basic stuff is he's a plot, not device, but he's more famous for the satire when he's not in middle of something.
Yeah,
Like he's he's not quite as immortal as he appears. Like they make him out to be. See, the whole thing with a lot of the inside jokes in this one is they let him be Deadpool and they let Wolverine, like Hugh Jackman, explore a lot of Wolverines. They didn't do that in the previous, where you could lean into the satire that is Deadpool.
yeah.
You had Deadpool 2, which kind of had the Merc without the mouth arc, and others, like his teaming up with Cable or joking about it, right?
Yeah.
But the thing about that is you didn't have that kind of satire that allows Deadpool to be Deadpool.
Yeah.
So in Deadpool and Wolverine, they did that. And that is a bigger deal.
Yeah. So, do you want to add something about Deadpool 2?
I didn't hate it, but I didn't like it. I mean, Deadpool is definitely not the added, but no, nothing else the other hand.
What would be your grade out of 10?
It wasn't terrible. I put it like a 6 out of 10. I mean, the whole thing with X-Force and that type stuff, his team-ups, is what people know him for.
Yeah.
I mean, if you don't know him for his Cable, like, because it's kind of like Suicide Squad. How you handle Cable, like how you handle, like, characters in DC that you don't use on a regular basis, like Harley Quinn is a prime example. They dumped her on Suicide Squad. Suicide Squad is where you just dump characters that aren't canceled or you want them to be semi-relevant, but not fall out of mainstream, if that makes sense. Deadpool was like, oh, he might show up in an event if we need serious stuff or Weapon X style. He had the whole line. He was just doing that. So,
Yeah.
huh.
I will give the second Deadpool a 10 out of 10. I had no issue whatsoever with that one. So I guess now we can dive deep into the last Deadpool, Deadpool and Wolverine. What did you think of that one?
um, I actually kind of love it a lot because it is. It's, I mean, it's ridiculous.
Deadpool was always ridiculous, so that
Oh,
shouldn't be an issue.
it's as I said, 3 is. See, I watched it and I was looking for others. It's like it's a very entertaining action flick.
Yeah,
But I agree that, like with others, that like Arch and others, you don't go into it like a plot. It has kind of a plot, but a lot of it is. It was Ryan Reynolds and Hugh Jackman
yeah,
could basically do what they want with the film.
yeah,
And it was a love letter both to Wolverine and Deadpool. Now, Arch, take his example, right? He said it's a love because Arch was more like when you liked old school Wolverine. That was a lot of old school Wolverine storylines, especially in the variants. Now, like, because I was going to have to make fun of you and see how you was going to react to short stack Wolverine.
Oh,
The
very tiny one,
joke about
the dwarf one, the
yeah. Do you
small
know about the
Wolverine.
joke about short stack Wolverine?
Not really, but I found that funny because I've heard he was supposed to be very small, and that was a weird
Yeah.
cast to have like Wolverine being tall. So I thought that was very funny because I heard about that a lot.
Like really early Wolverine, like a lot of the variants, like I didn't think they would go to the AOA version.
Yeah,
Like the AOA version is an interesting one unto himself because, granted, that's a weird one. Like I had to even look up some of the cameos. Like as I said, the movie is like a love letter to a lot of what the Fox and the other X-Men projects that were what ifs.
yeah,
Like if you caught it, there was a lot of canceled jokes about the canceled projects, like Electra was in it. Um, Now, I didn't feel like Laura Kinney was wasted. Like, Logan is. Now, there's a difference between Logan and Old Man Logan. Old Man Logan was the one sitting on the porch.
Yeah.
In that's actually a really, really damn good story, by the way. Because it's set in a universe, or at least where in America, where the villains win.
Yeah.
And they core part of that is like like that would have been a really funny, and even when they adapted him to 616, he wasn't that bad. Basically, he was got mind controlled or warped by Mysterio, and he attacked all the X-Men and killed them.
Okay.
And then there's the other parts where he kills the Hulk. The Hulk basically spawns an incestuous line because Hulks can only have kids with Hulks.
Wow.
There's like, so go figure, and then Hulk eats him, then he has to like, that's why that, like, a lot of it is like, if you're familiar with the comics, they allow him to lean into. Now, Arch doesn't. Some of the humor goes overboard.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, the 200 Deadpool are funny. The thing with Cassandra Nova, but I felt entertained. I mean, I'm just like, I just don't. As I said, I was pretty shocked they let the humor get away with stuff.
Yeah.
Because if you know the comics and you know, even if you were a normie, like, even if you were an absolute normie in the universe, you could get into that film. Now, what gets me about the whole thing is they do touch on some of the Loki stuff.
I haven't seen Loki, but I've heard about it, so I kind of know.
Well, that's the B-15, the black woman with an afro.
Yeah.
Which is, we think, and the show is like supposed to be fuck, I'm gonna butcher her name. It's like Rhaenyra, like the one that fell in love with Kang in the comics.
Okay.
And he searches all time and space for like her, basically. And
Okay.
it's like Rhaenyra, it's like Rhaenyra or something like that. And it comes down to eventually, like, he can never have her, but like Loki is a weird one. Like, apparently, what they allowed for the show to do, like, that's actually out of the MCU stuff or the series next to WandaVision that wasn't bad. Like, you saw references, like, that's why I say Deadpool and Wolverine. It has that really good, like, I call it like this weird, good symmetry.
Yeah.
Now, the whole thing, right, with him wanting to die, though, like, I don't know. I don't think of him as overly emotional. Because, to be fair, I'm surprised they didn't throw in the joke about Mistress Death. Because, if you don't know, there was a period, the reason why he could not die was because he fell in love with Mistress Death.
Okay.
And Mistress Death fell in love with him. Mistress Death is tied to Thanos, of course. But at the same time, that prevented Deadpool from utterly dying for a while.
That's interesting.
Also, one of those few reasons why it was actually considered like a bullshit reason why he couldn't as well, but give or take. But the show definitely plays into the stuff that people made with it, the canceled Marvel projects. If you go in and you look in the void, you see the stuff from the canceled Planet of the Apes. You see Furiosa. You see Mad Max's. But it's an over-the-top representation.
Yeah.
It's not just Marvel, but like it is interesting. They pulled out the Channing Tatum Gambit, which we would have thought would have been bad.
He was actually really cool.
Now the funny part, the line is they brought in Wesley Snipes and goes, "Yeah, there's ever only one blade." Now, that is a deep stab, by the way, because that is a deep stab at how badly they're mismanaging Blade, the current movie.
Yeah.
That's going through a lot of rewrites. Like, apparently the actor's finally done with it. But there's that
The
whole...
actors are finally done with it. Wow.
I don't know. Okay, that's a separate thing, right? Because I'm not generally a fan of weird meta humor based on events. But that's a lot because it's actually... There's a lot of lines that are shots at current Disney.
Yeah.
Like, he goes, but I can do this, and like, but it's also that point of, if you catch it, they allowed Ryan Reynolds to take the jokes at Disney. It's X.
Yeah.
Like, I can go to the MCU and be like recut and reused all the time. There's the thing, like, you have to, like, if you listen to it, I may rewatch it a couple of times because there's a lot of jokes. They're really funny because, and the villain, by the way, is pretty good as well. Not the person from the TVA.
Yeah, the Vanessa
Cassandra
something,
Nova
Cassandra,
is. There's a reason, by the way, you don't see her in a lot of stuff, a lot of works.
Why she doesn't accept a lot of work?
Because how do you do her? She is Professor Xavier if he didn't have a conscience.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
What does she do to half those people?
She blows them up, or she lets something else
She, like,
delete them.
Johnny Storm's like, oh. She just rips the skin off of him.
And the post-credit scene where we get the footage, that was hilarious.
So, like, the idea, right, is you have these people, like, she's definitely a weird power scale for the universe.
Yeah.
And it's unique.
That's true. So I gotta say, I have no issue with that movie. I adore it. I liked it a lot. I think I will go rewatch it eventually, but I want to see Longlegs again. Anyway, I thought the humor was great, the action as well, mocks the Fox universe, as you said. I thought pretty much every villain were entertaining and had charisma. The music was cool. Mocks Furiosa and the Mad Max franchise.
But Furiosa was not a bad film.
I agree. I liked it a lot. That was a solid movie, but it still mocks it. It's about finding purpose. It's about anyone can become a hero, even when you are the worst, like the Wolverine we got in that movie. and it's interesting because I remember seeing the Fox Universe Jackman journey. I've seen most of the Fox X-Men movies. I think the only two or three I haven't seen were like Apocalypse and Dark Phoenix.
Did
Uh,
you see the? You're talking about the Brian Singer ones. They're good.
X-Men Apocalypse, I think
You're
that's the
talking
one.
in the second part of like First Class.
Yeah, I haven't seen. I have seen First Class, but I haven't seen like Apocalypse.
So the thing about the second is about um, they did X-Men First Class, then they were trying to go through the Cuban Missile Crisis.
Yeah, but what I really wanted to say is I've seen that iteration of Jackman and becoming Logan and such, and it's true. Like Wolverine wasn't really that much of a big hero. Yes, he did heroic stuff, but like it was kind of a mess. Like it wasn't like, how do I frame it? It wasn't your typical superhero. I think he was someone that was very pessimistic, and it was still very entertaining. I liked Logan a lot, but like the line where X-23 says to Logan, even my Logan wasn't the perfect Logan. It's goddamn true. I remember that Logan that was a wreck in the Logan movie, and even after being a wreck, he still stepped up and did the right thing, and
They
he sacrificed
no, they
himself.
wanted to do old. Okay, so Logan, they wanted to do Logan.
Yeah,
They wanted Logan. They wanted Old Man Logan, but they weren't going to pull that storyline. Like the thing about Old Man Logan, it's good enough. It's kind of like Wolverine Origins in the terms of how it's viewed. Old Man Logan, right, is think of it this way. This is how well regarded Wolverine Origins is to comic fans and to Marvel.
yeah,
It was good enough to be an origin story for Wolverine, to be canonized as Wolverine's origin story.
yeah,
That should tell you how good it is. And the run, so like the big part about it is, right, that Old Man Logan is like a grimmer version of the actual universe, but of what an elderly one looks like, kind of. I mean, even though he could technically live 3,000 years,
yeah,
because, but that's why, like, the cameo with, like, the Age of Apocalypse one, like, it makes sense because that was a canceled or a different universe. But, like, I think now, where I think the film does fall apart, like itself, is when you let Deadpool be too much Deadpool. I don't like, to be fair, I'm not the biggest fan of, like, the fact they miss really a point to make Vanessa like a villainess that he fell in love with, because, but then again, right? That's nitpicks. But like, I don't like always the over the top Deadpool. Like, that's never been my cup of tea.
yeah,
Like, it's a good, like, I mean, it does run long. Like, that's why I think the pacing issue goes a little too long. Like, and
oh,
but
that's
they,
interesting. I thought the pacing was perfect, and
I, it felt some parts of it you could cut down.
what I like the most about that movie would be how over the top Deadpool is. So we have very different opinion on that, and I will add more to this. I feel like they are perfect opposite Wolverine. Like Deadpool really wants to be a hero, but he's a loser, while Wolverine is not necessarily a loser, but he doesn't want to be a hero. But at the end, they both become a hero, and it's very interesting how Deadpool kind of force Wolverine ends, and in the end, he gets to choose to go there, and Wolverine also choose to join Deadpool to basically
Well,
save the
the
day.
thing about it is, right? They gave Hugh Jackman the yellow suit.
Yeah,
Now they don't. Now I wanted to know which universe they pulled that Logan from, because it's weird how they every other Logan they show, except for the cover with him being bound to a cross, which that was a reference to a cover, was an interesting universe. Because the idea of the short stack Canadian Wolverine is because when he first premiered, he was only like 5'4".
yeah,
Like the idea of some people don't like there's the idea people don't like that version of Wolverine because like Hugh Jackman's too big, but he's like supposed to be squatty kind of a thing.
yeah,
Like he is a play on the Canadian thing. Now the movie, unironically, even in The Void, like it's interesting seeing like Tyler Mane as Sabretooth. Like he's a more serious Wolverine, basically.
yeah.
So it's a weird one because I don't know if it was meant to play into like something about uh that's why I said the film, it'd be curious if they do another one and they try to get Ryan Reynolds into the game. I mean into the other films.
Yeah,
As much as we wouldn't want to see it because like now the funny part I will say I'm surprised they let Gambit be Gambit to a degree. Like if you don't catch that, the Channing Tatum Gambit, right?
yeah.
That's actually really good in what he's capable of.
That's
Now, I
cool.
don't know if you can turn um so like there's a version of Gambit, right? That we didn't know how they were going to do that Gambit that he
Yeah,
can turn anything into energy.
yeah,
That's what he was doing to the people. Which could you just touch a person, then turn them into energy? Yeah. Explode them? Like the thing with the cards, deck of cards, like making the whole deck of cards into like stuff he can throw at people. That's very much a comic depiction.
yeah,
What he could do if you didn't. Now, it takes more kinetic energy to turn like a body into a bomb.
yeah,
Unless you want to go with New Sun version of him, which is a little more controversial, but it's a very entertaining film. Like, it's not bad. Now, I do hate the idea of the 200 plus Deadpools that come out.
I liked it, and this is also when you get
I
to
liked it,
realize
except for the whole fact that it's pretty ridiculous.
that was the point of it. But The other thing is we get to see that one of the Deadpool is not really Deadpool because he is a mere mortal, and it's just hilarious how he just dies. The one that
Okay.
doesn't wear a mask just dies.
It's like the merc on the merc with a mouth. Not all have regeneration abilities.
Yeah,
That's a kind of a known fact. I mean,
yeah,
like prime example, the Wolverine from Age of Apocalypse had a hand sawed off by Apocalypse. That's why
yeah,
he has one hand. Couldn't grow it back because I guess he didn't choose to grow it back. He just did the whole thing of the adamantium stump. Like, I guess eventually is another version of him.
yeah,
But, like, the idea is there's other Deadpools that are there. Like, because I would have done more focusing on the Deadpool corpse, which would have been like Lady Deadpool, Dance Pool, Baby Pool. That was a baby laughing.
wow,
Baby Pool. The dog. There, and that's the thing, right? A lot of the whole multiversal thing. The reason why you really don't see Cassandra Nova a lot is because she is purely psychotic. Next to Onslaught, she's really bad. Like, you have to do her with, like, really weird reverence because remember, and this is for anyone who sees the, she was the one who ordered E for extinction event. She's like
wow,
Charles if you do not have any empathy. Charles is a powerful enough telepath. If he wanted there to be no humans, he could probably blink out an entire continent. Why
yeah.
doesn't he do it?
He
Because
doesn't
he
want
has
to.
a heart.
Yeah,
Cassandra Nova chose to use the Wild Sentinels to wipe out Genosha and kill 16 million mutants.
yeah,
So it's like her, like, but I like her in universe, like how they explain her. She's a because then also every time you see her in the comics, she's pretty bad, pretty not a nice person.
that's true.
When I mean she isn't, it's these weird storylines where even when she's in like an astral form, she manipulates people and causes really bad things to happen.
Yeah,
So, I mean, they kind of redeem her a little bit in the Krakoa era, but I feel like she's a really good villain, like Ultimate, but like bringing the whole TVA in and like having like the whole realm of that. I mean, it's a good film. Like, don't get me wrong. There's a part where some jokes run too long.
yeah.
And it does happen. Like, I would have cut about 20 minutes off that film. 20
That's
minutes, maybe.
interesting.
It would not even been bad.
Wow,
Like,
that's surprising.
why would you make that near? Very few films deserve to be 2 hours.
Yeah,
Stuff like Gods and Generals or Gettysburg, which you really should see at some point. Both Gods and it's more like they're based on Gettysburg was done in the 90s, but like and then Gods and Generals was the other one. Like if it's historical film, you can run for 2 hours. You don't want to take a joke. Like, you don't want to take, like, the other.
Yeah,
If that makes sense. A
it
long
does.
running joke.
So, I will give this movie a 10 out of 10 because I don't have much more to say. What would be your grade out of 10 for
It's a
Deadpool and
10 out of
Wolverine?
10 for me.
Wow, that's
I
interesting.
don't hate it. It's just, I mean, it's enough of the humor to do whatever.
Yeah. Do you
It's
want
but
do you want to add something?
no, I mean, I said what I needed to say. I think I'll have to elaborate a little more because it helps a little bit to know the cameos.
Yeah.
But the problem is the film does like have a tendency to run a long time. And I mean, granted, I will give the leniency enough of the humor, but like traditionally, it's a rare exception that it's executed long enough that it's not terrible.
Yeah.
I would have knocked off because when I say it has plot and pacing issues, it's only saved by the action and the humor.
Yeah.
Like, if you're not going to have a plot or that type of stuff, you don't milk a joke or a scene for 20 minutes.
Yeah.
Do something weird. Have a director's cut with a longer.
Yeah. That makes sense.
Does that make sense? That's
Yes,
why
it
I
does.
said it. 1 minute 59 or something like that. That's a long film.
Yeah. Since I don't have much more to say, are we ready to end this?
Oh, it's fine. We could do that, yes.
Well, thank you a lot for joining, man. That was a great stream. I thank you to Darn Mandalore as well. We had very interesting discussions about Deadpool 1, Deadpool 2, and Deadpool and Wolverine. Next time around will be Fallout in Borderlands in 2 weeks. Anyway, that's it for
I already know
tonight.
Borderlands is.
Borderlands,
I already know Borderlands is gonna be a dumpster fire.
amazing. And we are out.
Yes.